take a look at this BBC News item from January. So we can see from the headline there, climate-related deaths fall in England and Wales according to the ONS, which is the Office for National Statistics. If we look at the start of the article here, it says climate-related deaths in England and Wales fell between 2001 and 2020 according to a new analysis by the ONS. So what the ONS essentially did was look at that 19-year period, looked at the warming and determined that overall there were fewer deaths as a result. So there was actually more during the summer but less during the winter. If we look at the analysis here by Justin Rowlett, he does make the reasonable point that because it's an observational study, there may be confounding factors, and it's also an experimental statistical method. So, while we can't say the exact number that the ONS come up with as gospel, it probably does point to the direction of travel in terms of the effect of warming in excess deaths. Now, the curious thing about this article is even though it refers to the ONS study, nowhere does it actually mention the number of excess deaths that have been reduced by. Now that is odd, because if we look at this more recent article by the BBC about the heat wave, if we go down through this, we can see somewhere down here, we can see here it says in England there were 2,500 excess deaths in the summer of 2020 due to hot weather. So clearly the BBC don't have a problem in reporting the actual numbers involved. So it's curious why with the ONS study the BBC haven't actually mentioned that. If we actually go to the ONS study, it's quite a long article. Now I'll put the URLs in the video description as usual, so if you want to look at these in more detail yourself you can do. So if we go down here to try and find out the actual figures involved, there's a lot of information about exactly what they did. So here we go. Over a 20-year period, the estimated change in deaths associated with warm or cold temperature was a net decrease of 555,000, which is an average of nearly 28,000 deaths per year. So it's very curious why the BBC hasn't actually mentioned this number, but they will mention it on a different article about the heat wave. It kind of gives me the impression it's a little bit like if it's bad news then give the figures, but if it's good news we don't really want to tell people what the figures are, even though we have actually bothered to report this story. So I will certainly hope that if there's anybody from the BBC watches this video that they could go to the comments and let me know why the figures weren't cited there. It certainly gives me the impression, I don't know about anybody else, so maybe leave me a comment, that it's a case of bad news is definitely bad news, but good news is also bad news because they also mention the effects of climate change overall and in the future.